Underrated Live. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. We hope you enjoyed the movie. I certainly did. For anyone listening at home, the film we just watched was 1984's Runaway, a techno thriller written and directed by Michael Crichton. We are the Undercast Company. My name is Derick McDuff, and I'm joined, as always, by Ariel Ortiz.
Hi, hey everybody. Hello.
Alan Torres. And we are joined by a special guest today, Mr. Logan Crow, the owner and proprietor of the Frida Cinema, where we had our great live show. Logan shows the film. Say hi, everybody, Logan.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
How'd everybody like the movie?
Yeah! Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, this is, as I said, directed Michael Crichton, starring Tom Selleck, Kirstie Alley, of course, Gene Simmons from Kiss as the main antagonist. But let's get right into it. Logan, since you were the one who chose the movie, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you love it so much and why you brought it to all of our attention?
Absolutely. When you guys reached out, there's a million different ways I could go trying to think of a movie that I thought is underrated and underappreciated. And, a lot of the movies that I love that I consider to be underrated and underappreciated have become cult classics. So, they have a following. Even something like The Fall has its own sort of cult following. But I feel like The Fall is fantastic,
It's
right?
the best. I definitely want to put that on I have it on our list.
It's a masterpiece, but as much as you can't find it and it's kind of like vague, people do know it, they talk about it, but I feel like no one talks about Runaway. I don't see it on sci-fi lists, and as much as I recognize that there is just 80s happening all over this movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The absolute best parts of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I loved it. Absolutely. There's just so much imagination going on in this movie, and it's, I think it's paced really well, and it just moves at a clip, and I think it's just a blast. I think it's a blast of a film. I have always been a huge fan of this movie, so it was my immediate pick for this.
Yeah, I think it's like, what did people in 1984 think the world would be like in 1986?
Correct. It's the same year the Terminator came out. So, you got two filmmakers with very sort of not very pleasant views of where technology was headed.
Yeah, Michael Crichton, not liking technology. Who would have thunk?
There you go.
Yeah, the one thing that I could say, the word that sums up this whole thing, and I was like, right at the end, I was like, riveting. It's just so insane and out there, and I ended up liking it, for better or worse, of whether it meant to or not. It's such an enjoyable movie, and of course, as Tom Selleck is in all of his movies, he's just Tom Selleck. He is the mustachioed Magnum PI, just out there, just out there, to either solve a crime or take care of a kid. You got three men.
Or rub a woman's nose.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah. 3 men and a little lady or a baby mixed in there, and then you have Tom Selleck Magnum PI, like I said. And I was just like, this is just Tom Selleck, and I think that's just how Tom Selleck is just always going to be. He's just going to be Tom Selleck, playing in everything, and it was just so enjoyable. I think Gene Simmons is one of the most he could use his face. Everybody knows he could use his tongue very impressively, but man, does that man every different he had to be doing 100 different faces. And every time his eyes blinked creepily, I was like, he's a good bad guy. Yeah.
This was your first time seeing it, right?
Yeah,
That's so rad. That's so cool. No, did anybody notice that? I feel like Gene Simmons just watched Scanners. I don't know if Scanners came out before this. And he just saw Michael Ironside, and he's like, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. And Michael Crichton's like, go for it, dude.
I'm like, I don't think Gene Simmons is a great actor in this, but he has such a presence. It's the same stage presence he has because he's so theatrical in Kiss that he's just kind of he gives you this stare that looks right into through the screen into your throat, so through the back of Tom Selleck's head into you. It's so unnerving, and you're like, wow. Like he couldn't give like he wouldn't play like Iago or something in Othello, but like this, like it's like almost like the shark in Jaws, just like terrified, just these dead, creepy eyes, just like coming for you. No matter what you do, he will come for you and he will send his horrible little robots. And I watched it before to kind of like prep for this, but it was right when we first started talking. It was a couple months ago, and I forgot a lot of how just unnerving he is. And that last little jump scare he does was the most 80s thing I've ever seen, where it's just like, ha! And it's just like,
I was like, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna do it? They did it. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's literally the end of Scream
Where they're just like, the killer or the bad guy's gonna scare the audience for one last time, and I was like, come on, can you do it? And then he did it, I was like, yes, like me and my girlfriend just like jumped out of our seat. Even though we knew it was gonna happen, we're just like, oh yes, it's perfect. But real quick, did anybody else hope that like when he gave the suitcase to the guy, like there was no money in it? Like, I was just hoping there was just gonna be a bunch of like Kiss memorabilia. Just like Gene Simmons is so like pushy about it. He's like, would you like a Kiss coffin?
I thought it was gonna be the spider, cause like it just like opens
Oh yeah,
you know?
I was expecting
And then
that
it
too.
comes, no, better, it comes out from a used towel and then jumps at him, yeah.
It's funny because like I was reading up a little bit on this movie, and apparently Gene Simmons, like a bunch of people were trying to get him in other movies. Like they were like, oh, be in this movie, and they were all music movies. And he kept being like, no, I don't want to just be like Gene Simmons from Kiss in a movie. I want to just like have an actual part. And they like Michael Crichton really figured it out for like him in this movie. Like he was like, yeah, like you've got that stage presence. We'll put you in this. And I'm so glad that he waited and wasn't just like, in whatever random musical movie. Like he actually went out and did something that was just kind of out of his normal wheelhouse. But when you stop and think about it, you're like, yeah, that works.
Yeah, there's just so many like impressive moments that I wasn't expecting. Like how fast the dad was running away from the bullet, and then the bullet time too. The first showing of like this self-tracing bullet. And the technology was actually very impressive, like just like out there, and I know that
They predicted drones!
Yeah, they
Yeah, they
predicted.
predicted a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot in this movie that
I'm calling you on a mobile phone. What?
There's like a whole list, if you go like IMDb trivia, there's like this whole list of things that are in this movie that did not exist at the time.
Yeah.
That's just really incredible. Everything from the video doorknob cameras to cops having semi-automatic weapons, because back then they had revolvers, to internet at some level, social media. There's another big one that, the little TV that Bobby's watching under the bed. We didn't have small TVs back then. So all this stuff, that was pretty amazing. That this movie is so prescient. It should be respected. Yeah, seriously, it's amazing.
Well, I was reading this book, I think it's called, this book by John Truby, and he was talking about like different storytellers and stuff, and one of the ones he mentions is Crichton, and he's like, Crichton, he's not at the best at coming up with like compelling characters or like, crazy original storylines, but the guy has all these insane concepts. Like, he'd just think of stuff, and like what you just said, Bruce, like when you predicted all this technology that would be coming out in the next, or like 35 years later, or whatever it is, close to 40 years later, and he really did have all these ideas for things that would become a part of our everyday life.
And he's got explanations that I love. He's good with world building. Like when you watch Jurassic Park, and you're watching the whole Mr. DNA video, and they're talking about, an amber. You kind of watch it and be like, really? I guess, yeah. I guess if the mosquitoes are trapped in amber, you could probably get their DNA out and fuse it up. And like, Westworld, all of these ideas that he had, he doesn't just throw out the sci-fi world. He always puts in layers of explanation of how that world exists. And one of the things I love about Runaway is that Runaway is told so matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
This is what they do, and they're robot, people, they look at robot crimes, and the terminology that's used, all this future talk is just said breathlessly, just like you would today about anything that exists. And I always thought it really helped sort of create a believable world in which a lot of, insane things happen.
Yeah.
I give this movie a lot of credit.
Oh,
I really do.
I'd never heard that actually
Yeah.
before you mentioned it, and then because when we first were emailing, you were like, "Oh, Runaway, we should do that," and you were like, "Have you seen it?" And I was like, "No," but I'm really glad we did.
It just doesn't come up. It doesn't.
Yeah,
no
no.
one talks about Runaway.
It's a perfect pick for this podcast, honestly.
Yeah, it just drops you in the deep end, and like randomly, a recent movie that had just did that, and I kind of got the same sense as Dune,
Yeah.
because it just like drops you in, doesn't give you any explanation, but then you like catch up, like, okay, this is how the world is, this is how it is, and stuff like that. And yeah, it was very much like it was an interesting take on robots and stuff like that. It kind of had like a feel of iRobot, especially with his job and like going after robots and stuff like that go haywire. But then also, yeah, like has this sense of like family, and then you have like a kind of true crime with and conspiracy, and essentially cyber conspiracy and all this stuff, and then the militarization of technology, and it like very much branches out very well. It was random.
To have Runaway and Dune talked about in the same sentence means our work is done.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it does. It has everything. I mean, if you're a Jetsons fan, that's as close to like a cinematic Rosie as wherever you in Lois. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every kid dreamed of like having Rosie the robot at their house making them breakfast.
And now we just have Siri.
And now we have Siri, right? That's true.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that Michael Crichton has like a kind of style to everything, where like if you notice in Westworld, it's like animatronics gone wrong, and then Jurassic Park is like dinosaurs gone wrong, theme park gone wrong, and then this is like Roomba's gone wrong. Of course, you have to have it, but I really like that, like, I was kind of just shocked at how like ahead of its time, like, we just said, but like, it really predicts a lot of technology, especially with like, the killer Roombas. I mean, we're not there yet, but I mean, it's pretty fascinating how like, it's so, I don't know, it just blew me away. Like, I'm honestly very shocked too, like you said that, like, because I like 80s movies, and like especially like super cheesy 80s movies like this. And I was just like, dude, how have I not heard of this? But I thank you so much for introducing it to us, because now I just want to like watch it at like parties all the time. Like, I just want to have like a Michael Crichton night of just like Jurassic Park and Runaway.
Well, the spiders. I mean, to me, those spiders should be iconic. They should be iconic. I mean, they're so rad. I heard people in the audience, as much as it was like laughter with the cheesy, because there was some cheese in this movie, absolutely. But there were people, I could hear you guys reacting to like when the spiders are coming up on the elevator, when it jumps up, when it hits them in the hand. I mean, they're creepy, authentically creepy creatures, inventions in this movie.
It is a techno thriller. Like, you are legitimately like kind of like, oh my gosh, this thing's gonna like stick a needle in you and shoot acid in your face and then blow up and light you on. It's just like very just like edge of your seat. And Crichton is like very good at that kind of suspense, especially in a movie like this when he doesn't have like the kind of Spielberg magic over it like Jurassic Park, Like, this is just pure Crichton, like, things are coming to get you, don't trust technology, like, and it's really fun. It's, I think, 80s schlock in the best possible way, in the same way that RoboCop is, which is another kind of movie that I love a lot, that I think is pretty similar to this movie, that has, obviously been recognized over the years for being what it is, whereas I think this movie kind of, as we've said, is kind of just fallen by the wayside for whatever reason. And it's kind of been forgotten, but it's the same vibes. It's the same just kind of like cheesy 80s, just like the technology is coming to get you. Here's a cop who's gonna like try and stop them. So yeah, I think this definitely deserves to go in that kind of like 80s kind of like cheese, but knows what it's doing canon.
Yeah, I don't know how like self-aware it was, but it did definitely like, it was deep 80s, like, like with the, especially with his partner's character, like it was very much like, I don't remember any, but from RoboCop's character, his partner in that one, all women wearing skirts, that kind of like, borderline sexist, but okay. But it was just so like, with her character, I was like, this is your first date, you need to know all this stuff about your partner. Like, he does not need to be, you guys don't need to be together. This is your third date, kind of thing. But it was just so, like, and no, you kind of have to suspend belief in these 80s movies for that reason. But, you also find like like, it adds to the feel of it and stuff like that, which I enjoyed. But,
Every once in a while, it's interesting to revisit a movie that you love a lot from the 80s and see those little things that are like, oh gosh, yeah, that's better left. And I hadn't seen this one in a while. And no, absolutely. I mean, from the Kirstie Alley, the first thing he says, wow, she's really attractive. to whom? I mean, he's just saying that out loud, and then, ending on like, what, a 3.5-minute kiss with sparklers going on, all of
He's
it.
got acid on his face. His face has been
I'm
burned
like,
off.
yeah,
by
I'd
robots.
forgotten about this stuff. Right?
Yeah, I was like, he has acid on his face. I'm like, the man needs to go to a doctor. And also a long shot was the elevator ride up. I'm like, but it played good because it gave into that. And also another movie that this kind of like homaged in a way was, Hitchcock's Vertigo too, and stuff like that, and that whole thing. But yeah, so like even in that scene, like while it was long, like kind of waiting for it to end, I was like, well, it does play into like the vertigo-ness of it too. So yeah.
It's a lot going on in this movie.
I know, a lot. That's what I'm saying. It's like 5 movies in one, and it does like if some movies it does predate, or I don't know if like I, Robot the book was written before this, but it like definitely predates that movie. I guess it's kind of like inspiration a little bit from Vertigo and that story, but yeah. Was this an original story from Crichton?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it wasn't previously written.
That was 84, and it came out, like, my dad and I used to take me to a lot of movies, and so Terminator and Runaway, I kind of pair them in my head, because they both came out right around the same time, 84. And yeah, to me, this was, when you're little, you like what you like, and it affects you, and you don't know, this is bad, or this is a campy film, whatever, you learn that later. And, this was a masterpiece to me as a kid. But it just, one amazing set piece after the other. We haven't talked about the car chase, little tiny shuttle cars chasing after police. There's all this stuff that's happening. The neon sushi guys, one thing after another, where it's like, there's so much, like I said, inventiveness and moments and set pieces throughout this entire film that I think is remarkable. It does not, like you said, Spielberg, he doesn't try to gloss over, turn it into some kind of 2-hour and 10-minute film that could have easily been 80 minutes long, or focus on the future elements or future lines with a sense of wonder, so you can go like, wow, the future. It's so presented matter-of-factly, but at the same time, just one amazing idea after another. So no, I fully agree.
I think for me, my movie like that I'm very afraid to go back to from my childhood in the 90s is Billy Zane, the Phantom movie. Like,
Oh my God,
I love that movie.
Yeah, growing up?
Yeah, and I have not been back to it in 20-something years, and I'm just like, I think my Runaway, I don't know if it's gonna hold up as well as Runaway will, but I just remember like the 3 skulls and just, oh my gosh.
Has there been a movie, I'm curious to know, like, are there movies where you love it and you haven't seen it in a while and you go back and watch it and you're like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Well,
But you loved it back then.
Well, we kind of touched on one from my childhood on our podcast, and I mentioned this earlier for you, but Monkey Bone was one of mine from my childhood that randomly. But for me, I do still credit that it works. Still, there are some like randomness, but it still works for me, and I was glad for that. So yeah.
I think for me, the one that I kind of went back and rewatched, I saw it as a kid, but it scared the crap out of me, was Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But then I saw it when I was older, and then I was like, oh, this is fucking amazing. This is even better than I thought. So,
It scared me for a second. I'm like, what you doing?
well, that's what I was worried about, because one of my buddies, he was like, "You ever seen this Killer Clowns movie?" Like, it was a couple, like 10 years ago. And I was like, oh yeah, I saw it, but like it scared the crap out of me as a kid, like, 'cause I had like really bad claustrophobia, and I love clowns. But yeah, like we went back and watched it, and like I just had an absolute blast. Like I was worried too, because I was like, I remember the effects are kind of cheesy, and like I don't know. And then as soon as like a clown knocks some guy's block off, I was like, oh no, never mind. This is fine. This is good.
No, I think, so a couple months ago, I was actually on a podcast where that was kind of the premise, like you go back and rewatch something from your childhood and you're like, does this hold up? And I chose Pokemon, the first movie, and I was like, objectively, this is not a good movie, but I loved it. Like I was having so much fun watching it. I was like, yes, Mew, like how we are born doesn't matter. It's what we do with our lives. This is inspirational.
I think it would still make me cry. It will still make me cry, probably. Like just the going back to my 6-year-old self and just like remembering, Ash is stoned. Like, I'm like, oh.
Well, there's still that Minnesota Vikings joke. Did you see
Yeah,
that? Oh
yeah.
my god.
Mostly they're in Minnesota. And like Jesse James, you guys keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, like when I even as a kid, I think I saw it with I don't know if he's still here, but my cousin Freddie used to be one of our co-hosts as well. But we went to go see it together in theaters, and I still remember that part where he's just like, they're like, oh, there's Vikings here, and then Ash is like, oh yeah, they're mostly in Minnesota. I was like, go fuck yourself, Ash. How dare you say that? Like even as a kid, I was so upset, but.
I have yet to see any Pokemon movies. I gotta catch up on them.
Yeah, you got about 20 years of Pokemon
I
movies.
have a lot to catch up on.
Just
Stick
watch
to the games. Stick to the games. The games are good.
You know, but like back to Runaway, like this was like we said, it's really a thriller. Like it really is just like a techno thriller in a way that like few other movies I feel like are. You mentioned that like great car chase that they're doing, where it does feel like very unique, where they are running through the, like you see all the little shots where it's like the camera and it's like sped up and it's just kind of like going through the streets and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, this is like unique and impressive and just like I don't know, like it felt really of its time, yet at the same time you're like, yeah, you can watch this, in 2021 and it's still so enjoyable.
The one that's funny, speaking of the movie cameras, the one scene that even back then, used to crack me up and still does, and it was great hearing y'all laugh as well, it's the shot of the bullet chasing Chris Logan and Tom Selleck through the, and Tom Selleck turning around as he's running away from it. It just kills me. It looks so goofy.
Especially because it's kind of fisheye lens, that like a little miss, and it's just like,
And
oh
you're
my
seeing how
god.
fast the bullet's flying, but then it's chasing a running man who's running, not fast enough that he can't turn around and check for the bullet. So it's apparently it's hard not to visualize the bullet slowing down for him. So you get around him and hit Chris Wilkie. But yeah, that always kills me. That still just cracks me up. It just looks so goofy.
And then it's so goofy and great when it ends because it like doesn't just like hit this guy in the back and he's dead. It like explodes in his back and he's like halfway up a fire escape and he just like tumbles off backwards and Tom Selleck is like, oh, I guess he's dead.
Giant hole in his back.
Yeah, checks his pulse real fast. I think he's dead. I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
He's dead, Jim.
Gaping hole in the back. And yeah, like when that happened, I was like, I feel so bad for him. Like it's just, and then the way he lands too, it's like very like, it's just like.
Not even like, it's just like a couple seconds sooner. Like there's a part where like he runs into like all these like boxes or something. He like threw himself.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, dude, chill. Like, what did Michael Crichton make you do? Like, you just scared me. He's like, I need you to crash into those boxes as hard as you can.
No, it's Tom Selleck kind of like barely like moving him aside, and he just full ham like goes into.
Oh, yeah,
He's kind of like a soccer player,
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, it was great. I was like, thank God there was that like mattress there that you could just not really softly land on, but at least it wasn't like pure like asphalt street. Like.
Yeah, you gotta give it to all the actors in this movie. They gave 110%. Like it was insane how much they put into this movie. And into these characters that some stood on the screen for a little bit, some didn't. Like a standout for that is that dad. And then him freaking out was like one of the best overacting I've ever seen of just like, what did he do? What did he do? And then he runs away, and they're like, wait, no.
Or like the chief, he's so 80s chief, he's like, listen here, all right, you've been fucking this operation up since the beginning. You're off a case. Get out of here. You've got to go in there and pull the thing out. I just loved it. It was just so like every chief thing. But he was also like a whole foot shorter than Tom Selleck. So he's just like shouting up at him. He's just like, oh, so good.
And then the news reporter too,
Oh my
in that
God.
one, and gets her cameraman killed. And then Tom Selleck walks over him. We know it. They don't show it, but you had to step over this man. And then the news reporter is just like next day, oh, I have another camera for you.
Oh no, but what about that hero shot? He just steps over the dead cameraman and he's like, I saved the kid. Oh, he did it. And I'm just like, what about the camera guy? And he's like, I saved the kid.
all I could think of when he like suited up and like was like, I'm going in, was just like, I just had Dumb and Dumber pop in my head. It's like, what if he shot you in the face?
Suited up in like, I was like, are you going medieval? Because he wears like this electromagnetic thing, and I wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
And just like, it's just like, it's so goofy, but it's so good. Like the robot, like the little robot drone thing that's wheeling on, and it's just got like a revolver.
Yeah.
Like an old West style 6-shooter.
Like, this is what happens when you give robots opposable thumbs. I'm just kidding.
It's literally
But
that
it's
meme of the Roomba with like a knife taped
Yeah.
to it. Like, it was just essentially that, and I was like, damn, Michael Crichton predicted that as well. I forgot the meme, guys, but he was a gun stuff.
Yeah. But no, it's all amazing for the amazing effect that no one could expect.
And it's great to remember that there was a time, because it's when this movie came out, like, I watched it with friends, whatever, all this stuff was mind-blowing back then. Like the robot's got a gun.
Oh, yeah.
It looks hilarious now.
No,
you know,
it was
and-
mind-blowing to me
yeah.
today.
I love it, but like it's funny to watch those movies back then and remember, even stuff from like the 90s when I was older and you could discern that didn't, like, I think of Cool World, which is a horrible film, right? But back then, and not to say I don't like every once in a while throw it on because I love Cool World, but it's a horrible film.
Yeah, I think it's underrated.
But it was like, it was crazy back then. It's like, oh my God, it's like Roger Rabbit for adults. It's cool. They're interacting with each other, blah, blah, blah. It was, and then, but you watch it now with a new lens and everything that's come since and the way, effects and the new style of acting and everything. And it really does date a movie like this, but it's still, like you said, so thrilling and so engaging, for having those silly little moments. It's still a blast to watch. I'd be curious. I'm looking forward to talking, because I know most of you raised your hands if you hadn't seen this, but I am curious to know what everyone thought. But yeah, I love this movie.
Yeah, definitely. So, like you had mentioned, you saw this when you were a kid with your dad. So why don't you tell us like a little bit about like your history with this movie?
Yeah, my dad was young. He got married young, and so he was still, by all intents and purposes, a young man who loved movies when I was a kid. So he would just take me to everything he wanted to see, everything I wanted to see, and it was a very sort of Western thing where, the movie could have someone getting ripped to shreds and have their face peeled off, but if there was nudity, then, oh no, shielding my eyes, that sort of thing. But everything else was fair game. So yeah, I remember seeing, like I said, Terminator, which just blew my mind. That was a huge film for me, and Runaway around the same time. And I just was a huge fan when VHS came out. My sister, who's towards the back, also one of our board members, hey Giselle, this was one of our films. We would watch Runaway a lot. We just loved this movie. We loved Gene Simmons. I love Gene Simmons in this movie. I love Gene Simmons in Never Too Young to Die. I don't know if any of you have seen that. If you haven't, that's my next recommendation. It's another, if you think this was 80s cheese bad, Never Too Young to Die, you got John Stamos and Vanity are the protagonists, with Gene Simmons playing this insane androgynous, anyway, Never Too Young to Die. Anyway, I love Gene Simmons in this movie, and for all intents and purposes, it would have been great to see him play villains more often, and I was reading that on set, he would just stare, he would glare at his cast members and character, and made them all uncomfortable throughout the shoot. And then one of the reasons Michael Crichton hired him is because of the glare, that it chilled him to the bone. But, it was just one of my, I had this like little list of movies that I just kept, Runaway, Dreamscape, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown. Like there was this like repeated sort of like group of Arthur movies that I would just watch over and over and over again for whatever reason, and Runaway was just one of them. I just really loved this movie. It was just something I could always throw on and have in the background and just sort of like, trip out on. It was just a cool sci-fi movie that appealed to me. I probably watched Runaway more than I watched Star Wars or until RoboCop came along. So we have that in common. I adore RoboCop. I defend RoboCop.
All the relevant,
Yeah, so RoboCop then became, I think, 86, 87?
I think 87, I want to say.
There was a theater in Florence. 87.
Oh, thank you.
The Loma Mall that ran a double feature of The Lost Boys and Runaway that I think I went to 5 times.
That's cool.
You know, so-
Well, it's really interesting because when you're a kid, you have these movies that you watch, and they're all the same to you. Like, you don't know that Runaway is not in the same kind of league as Terminator because they're just movies you watch as a kid. And like for me, like I didn't know that like The Rocketeer and Indiana Jones weren't like on the same level. You know, like one was they're both. I still love both of them to this day. But you know, like Indiana Jones is like one of the biggest franchises in film history, and The Rocketeer like is just kind of this like admirable, like you know, kind of cult classic now. You know, that's finally getting a sequel after you know however many years. But you don't really put that together as a kid because you don't know like other than maybe your friends might talk about one movie, but you don't know like what critics think or what a box office is. You just know that this is a movie that you love to watch, just like this other movie is a movie you love to watch. You know.
I remember loving the score. Like I love the score to Runaway. It was Jerry Goldsmith's first synth score, and that was something else. Like, as I was watching the movie now, even though it's been years since I rewatched it, I was excited to rewatch it with the audience tonight. So I did study up, and you know I was anticipating every cue, because I just was like, that's how I remember this entire score. It's just some things that stick to you, you know, when you're a kid and you love movies more than anything else. You know, and this is one of those movies where, you know, if you were to ask me, you know, why is Blue Velvet your favorite movie? I'm like, well, sit down. We'll spend 3 hours on it. I can't explain why I love Runaway so much. I can't. It's just so brilliant to me. Right. I mean, I can tell you all the little elements that I love about the movie. That's what we're talking about. But like, why as a kid did I watch it over and over and over again? It just appealed to me. It was just a movie that I really found crazy entertaining and sort of like sparked my whimsy and imagination. And I loved the robot. I loved Lois. She's like was one of my favorite supporting characters in a film as a kid. Just the idea of Lois making hot dogs and all that stuff that she would talk about. Bobby. Yeah,
I
go
was
on.
like, no, Lois, save her,
I
save
know,
her.
right?
She's losing hydraulic fluid.
She's losing hydraulic fluid.
Oh my god, you gotta run over to the 7-Eleven and get some. 'Cause I'm pretty sure that, I wonder what they would have at like at 7-Eleven, like, you know, we go now, you know, they have like oil or whatever, like everything that's necessary. I wonder if like in that universe, or like, well, I'm gonna go get a couple like, you know, some Hershey's and some like, you know, oil for my robots and everything real quick, you know, 3 shells.
Yeah, it's like instead of getting a phone charge, you just got to get some like a part for your robot. Like this is a world where I imagine like instead of them having like developing smartphones, they just develop robots instead.
Yeah, I mean, on that factor, like, just the robots, they're like, for all intents and purposes, this was like in present time. So it's just like, this is the present, but there's robots. So I really enjoyed that, and I would be very interested in like, kind of like, I mean, it would be kind of harder in nowadays because we do actually have robots, but yeah, I guess like an iRobot is kind of like that. But even iRobot is like it still has some futuristicness to it, whereas like, it would be cool just to see like practical robots in modern day kind of thing.
Well, another thing I think about Crichton's approach is we've seen a lot of movies like The Terminator where like the robots become self-sentient. You know, they become self-aware. They decide to trigger a war. The Matrix, whatever it is. And with Crichton, whether it's Jurassic Park, Westworld, this movie, it's human interference ends up being the thing that causes whatever the crisis is, which I really dig about sort of that through line with him, that it's never just that the machines go nuts or that, you know, the technology goes awry. Dinosaurs have come back from a missile or something like that. It's humans took technology and did something terribly wrong, whether it's for evil purposes or for selfish purposes, like Jurassic Park, Kingdom of Dinosaurs, or Westworld, we're gonna have a theme park, which is an interesting take, you know, again, looking at the Terminator, where it's similar ideas, you know, technology gone awry, but, you know, in that more traditional, technology became self-aware and decided to just wreak havoc for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, that's like a really good one, because I think even, like maybe RoboCop is the only other one I can think of where it's like the people are the ones behind it, it's not just like, oh no, it's become self-aware, you know, like
Corporation.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But you know, like you said, you know, like Jurassic Park, the bad guy isn't, you know, the T-Rex and the Velociraptors, the bad guy is Dennis Nedry, you know, he's the one who screws everything up, you know, and corporations also in that, you know, too. But yeah, it's very, Crichton, I think, does a good job of being like, hey, technology is just another thing. Like how, you know, Tom Selleck has a speech, he's just like, people make robots, so robots break down. People aren't perfect, so robots aren't gonna be perfect either. It's not like we have to be afraid of technology necessarily, but we have to be afraid of its applications, and like, you know, we're selling it, you know, we're packaging it, moving too fast, it's standing on shoulders of the giants, like just Ian Malcolm just being basically a mouthpiece for Michael Crichton, so yeah.
And let me ask you a question, Logan. Well, you guys as well, I wanted to ask you guys, and even the audience as well, like, when I was watching it, I was like, okay, yeah, it's cheesy and, you know, and all that, but I'm not gonna lie, I would love to see, like, a modern version of this. Because we have Westworld, which essentially was another Crichton movie, you know, Deeper Gone Wrong kind of thing. And but I've only seen a little bit, like, the first season or two of Westworld, but I can totally see this, like, world kind of nowadays being even more advanced. I can totally see, like, writers really go out of the way, even making, like, the Runaway, like, department, like, the whole, like, I thought that was so interesting that there was just a specific, like, department for like, runaway robots, just how, like, there's, like, you know, vice and homicide and all that. So if HBO came out and were like, hey, we're gonna do a Runaway remake, show, movie, what would you guys want to see in that? Or like
Roombas. I think you had it, because when you mentioned the Roombas jokingly, I'm like, oh my god, if there was a modern version of Runaway, I would love to have killer Roombas, you know, chasing down the freeway to kill people. I also like too, like going back to that, like that idea of like a runaway department in the police. I love the little moments where you can tell that the chief found the runaway department sort of secondary or laughable. He rolled his eyes a lot as they were working on robots. Like all these little touches to like show them like the politics of the thing. But no, I agree with you. I think that, you know, it would be interesting to see this movie, you know, what in technology could a mad scientist who's, you know, working for, you know, like he's at one point, this is very matter of fact, like whoever has the most money, whether it be terrorists, whatever, it's just, that's what he's about, how they can manipulate modern day technology, like social media, say, for nefarious purposes. It would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
You guys turn on the TV and watch the news.
Yeah, and then have more gangsters with MIT degrees and
This guy with a Caltech.
Yeah,
Now he wants to nuke a bunch of
I mean, we
people.
haven't even talked about it. The bullets that seek the specific thermal reading of a specific human being. There's just so much going on in this movie, and it's just like one thing after another, just brought up matter of factly. But yeah, no, I mean, and you know, with effects today too, like to see like bullet count going around corners and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I would really hope to keep it practical. Like this movie was very, very practical. Like even like the building of like when they bust open like the tracking bullet, I was like very impressed with like how detailed it was and stuff like that. So like you know, I'm always a person that would love practical over special effects in most cases. So like I would really love like for if this was to be remade in any way, for that practicality to carry through too, yeah.
And I love the choices, like the bullet extraction scene. You know, I don't know about anybody else, but every time I see that scene, I can feel the nerve in my, you know, especially when the bullet gets pulled out and it just kind of pumps back in.
Yeah.
But they never show her arm. They never show the bullet. They never show the blood. They show her face and then the image on the thermal scan. And that's so effective because I think that, you know, given what looked like not the biggest effects budget for this movie, I think a close-up may have looked like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger taking out his eye in Terminator bad. You know what I mean? Like, but they don't, and it's still painful. It's still like, you know, it's still a palpable scene to watch, you know, with the choices like the sweat and just the grimacing and everything. No, I agree. Like there was a lot of really cool choices to keep things sort of still futuristic and still sort of fantastic, but subdued at some level.
Yeah, and I think that really, I wanted to bring up that scene, so thank you for mentioning it, because it does amp up the tension so much. It's like, you know, when you don't see a monster in a monster movie, it's so much scarier. This is the same principle, but with, you know, just like the tension of like removing this thing. You don't have this, like, if you're looking at an arm, I feel like it's just, you know, maybe a little grotesque and not as scary, but this just, you're on pins and needles like the whole time.
Seriously.
But to answer your question, Alan, like what I would really love to see if they were gonna make like an HBO Max, like original series or something, would be the Blade Runner 2049 approach. I wouldn't want to see like, oh, we're just gonna like remake this in like, you know, based on modern times. I would like to see the future like evolved from this. Like, not like, oh, it's 2021 now, but 2021 based on this, like 1986 or whatever. Like, I would absolutely love to see that. Make it like, Runaway 2049. Like, I would love that.
We got Bobby be the protagonist, all grown up now.
Yeah, no, like Tom Selleck is the chief, which is like, he has experience with being a chief. So, for Blue Bloods and all that, yeah.
Is he still married to Cynthia Rhodes? Do you think they got married? Is that what
Divorce?
If it was
I'm
you,
just
join
kidding.
divorce? Oh no. They gotta reconcile by the end of the miniseries.
Yeah, reconcile.
I was gonna say, I don't wanna go too far in the future because I love the aesthetic, like the 80s, like, especially the car chase scene. I absolutely loved that drone, so I want it to be like the far off year of like Runaway 2000. Like Y2K strikes. Like, I'd rather see something like a little more old school, but that's just because I love like 80s and old school stuff. But, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Blade Runner 2049 approach would be a lot of fun. And, screw it, why not get Danny Villeneuve in it? It's like, hey, you've done a little bit of cyberpunk. You ever heard of Runaway?
It does the same approach as your Dune. It just jumps right in.
It's really take a break.
It's sad to see Christy Alley go, though, isn't it? That's a brutal scene, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They done Jackie wrong, I think.
I love how she's just like so 80s sassy in this movie. She just like has no time for this misogynistic cop. She's like, I'm just here to have like big shoulders and smoke.
And then to get stabbed in like the brain, she got stabbed like right in the back of the head.
Yeah,
right
it's like
beneath the
right
head.
And nobody in that restaurant noticed. And he just plunks her in the water.
Well, I mean, did you see the sushi machine? I mean, they probably were like, oh, she got stabbed, but look at that.
Yeah. Well, guys, any final thoughts before? I think you had something, Ariel.
Oh yeah, I do have. So us as under Cast Company, we're going on our 3rd year in January, and this is a special occasion. So I thought I might give my co-hosts some gifts, based on our first podcast ever.
Thank you.
How many episodes have you guys done?
This is going to be episode 72.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, are there any films that are like the highlight episodes where you're like, proud moments, or like, oh, if you're gonna listen to 3, listen to these, just to like.
13 Ghosts is a great
I
one.
was about to say, I highly recommend it. I think we had an absolute blast on it. I think Ariel's the Searcher was in it, right? Yeah, her brother was in it, and we were just like crying of laughter. We were having such a ball of it, so I highly recommend that. If there's an episode I would recommend, it's 13 Ghosts.
Yeah. So our first ever episode is one that I would recommend, and that's what this is based on, is Speed Racers. And I got some pops from you guys because I'm a pops person.
Oh my god, this is the coolest shit. Oh my god, look at this guy.
That was so rad.
Everybody who knows me knows how much I love Speed Racer. I will never stop. It still makes me sad that the Wachowskis never got to make their sequel. Like, oh my god, this is so cool. Oh my god.
Which other one would I recommend? We've had some really good ones, like our series of the Big Swings, like that kind of spun off of our review of Speed Racer was really good. I really had a lot of fun with our summer sequel series too.
I think Star Trek Beyond, that was a really good one. Like, I love that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we feel like I love this show, us doing this show so much, is because we get, at least for me, I get introduced to so many random movies like this one, like Runaway here. And then I also get to introduce you guys to some, and it's just, we always have a great time of just like, acknowledging the good and the bad of a movie, but we never really put movies completely down. Like, we're always pretty much positive. We try to keep positivity to it. But yeah. I mean, we have fun in it. We have conversations like this. So if you ever want to hear more of this kind of conversation and banter, please give us a follow and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's my big thing is like, I love movies, and every movie is like somebody's favorite movie out there. Like, I stole that from a YouTuber, but like that's something that I always like love to say because it's really true. And there's movies that I love that I'm like, I guess I get why people don't like this, but it's really special for me. And film fans have like these really special relationships to movies like you with Runaway, and just like, these movies, like I don't want to put a movie down ever. Like, even if it's like something that I think is goofy or cheesy, I might like make fun of it a little bit, but like people love movies, and you should just go out and tell people, hey, this is an underrated film, like go do that. And that's the whole point of this podcast. And like, thank you everyone out there for like showing up tonight. It's like, I thought it might just be my parents here tonight. So to like see you guys all in the theater, like, and to come out and watch this movie and to like listen to us talk live, for our first live show has been really special. So thank you so much, guys, everyone.
Shout out to my team here, and Logan, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
And I want to give a shout out to Derick and Ariel because they have been such troopers. They've been pushing hard with everything. They do a lot more than I do. I'm just the host. I don't have as many resources as they do, but they constantly push it. They're always there. They're always pushing new ideas. They both made new shows as well. Like Derick had the Gateway episodes, and then Ariel has You've never seen. Sorry, Susan Bird.
No.
But like they're always pushing it, and I absolutely love that. And they also push me to be a better podcaster and be on it. So I just want to give them a shout out, especially since this is our first live show. At least I want there to be an audience for them to be like, hey, dude, I love you guys, and I appreciate everything you guys do.
No, thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and because we do get into heated discussions, and Alan is always there to be the mediator.
Yeah.
I really because
Well, the two of us, we get a little heated sometimes, in a good way, but Alan's like,
the psych major over here. So yeah.
Only I went to MIT to make robots. I messed up.
But yeah, and Logan, thank you again. Before we close out, you run this amazing theater. Like, I've had so many fun times coming to this theater. I think a couple years ago we also saw Drive here.
Oh my God, one of the first movies I saw here was Jurassic Park when I was like 3. That's like my first film memory was seeing Jurassic Park. So like, oh crap, it all comes back around.
But yeah, and then you did like your Lord of the Rings marathon. I had a ton of fun with that. So thank you and for hosting us. It was really cool. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything to the listeners or anybody about.
Just first of all, there's so much love on this stage. I love it. But no, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And honestly, we program the theater from within. Trevor, Dylan, and myself. And, we do put in a lot of movies that we know you love. You guys send recommendations. We really, really do keep a list of the recommendations that come in and then try to find ways to incorporate them into a film series or just play them. But we also obviously play a lot of our favorite films, and I had yet to play Runaway here. And so this provided me the opportunity to finally bring Runaway to the Frida. Sure, I'm playing a Blue Velvet twice a year, if you drive twice a year. But, it was just a joy to finally bring this movie here. And honestly, all of you, so glad you all made it. I'm just curious, if I can close out with this. You mentioned, which I love, movies that you responded to that you really love, that you should embrace and celebrate them and share them. Just from the audience, did that trigger any specific films for anyone? Does anyone have a film to shout out that they just absolutely love, but feel like not enough people know or have seen, or that the movie's considered bad even though you just think it's remarkable? Anything? Just curious.
My science project.
My science project! Oh my God, that's a great one. Okay.
I'll start writing these down.
My science project is awesome.
We're always looking for suggestions.
Yes.
I've got 2, Ice Pirates and Caveman.
Oh, those are great.
Ice Pirates and Caveman.
That's a double feature right there. Space herpes.
Get Caveman on.
Sorry. It's a caveman thing. All right, anyone else? Come on, Ringo Starr and Dennis Quaid as Caveman. Shelley Long. Has anyone seen Caveman? You've seen it. Anyone? Caveman is amazing. Carl Gottlieb directed it, wrote Jaws. It is fantastic. A great, memorable song number in it too. Anyone else?
It's animated, but Troll in Central Park.
Troll in Central Park.
Troll in Central
I've
Park.
heard of that one, Brand.
I gotta add that to the list.
It's weird, that's the second time someone's, I've never seen it, but my friend Brian, who loves Secret of NIMH, he's a Don Bluth fanatic, always talks about
Is it a
Troll.
Don Bluth film?
It's not a Don Bluth
Okay.
film,
But
but
if it's in that same
we were
vein,
talking, well, yeah, we were talking about Tom Bluth, and he just brought up Troll in Central Park, that it's something I gotta watch.
It's oddly unsettling, but very sweet.
I mean, that's kind of right up my alley. Oddly unsettling, but very sweet. That's yeah, okay, that
That
works.
was Titan, if anyone saw, oddly unsettling, but very, very sweet. Anyone else? Yes, in the back.
8 Million Ways to Die. Jeff.
Jeff Bridges and Rosanna Arquette?
Yes.
8 Million Ways to
Hal
Die.
Ashby. Hal Ashby.
Was it a Hal Ashby film?
That is a Hal Ashby film.
Wow,
Yes.
okay.
That's why I think it's interesting, because it's very not Hal Ashby.
Interesting. You know what I watched last night?
Yeah.
Which, and I actually wrote it on your board out there.
Okay.
And it just blew me away. And I want to watch it again. Like now is My Dinner with Andre.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's been on my list
Yeah.
forever.
I don't know why it took me this long, and I totally thought I knew exactly what I'd be getting into, but no. If anyone hasn't seen My Dinner with Andre, don't watch it if you're going through like a really deep existential crisis. Which, yeah, but what a film. And just incredible movie. Yeah, on the back row?
Berserker.
Berserker. Okay, right on. That's the couch movie?
Oh, no.
Not the newer Berserker with two guys on the couch?
No, the old one.
No, okay, no, I haven't heard of
You're
it.
not talking about that song that one guy sings.
My love for you is like a clock berserker. Would you like some making fuck berserker? Yes.
Alphabet City.
Alphabet City. Alphabet City. Is that,
incredible.
Vincent Spano.
what's that? Vincent Spano?
Yeah.
Never heard. Okay, right on.
Oh, Logan, check it out. It's awesome.
Okay. We'll have to go back and replay it to remember all these titles.
I'm like at 0 right now. I have not seen like any of these.
Anyone else? Yes.
Warning Sign.
Warning Sign.
Another one with my dad in it, so yeah, that'd be a good one.
Right on. Who was your dad?
G.W. Bailey.
G.W. Bailey's your dad?
Oh.
Okay, police chief who is shorter than Tom Selleck is his gentleman's dad. Talk about this on Facebook. Great. That's amazing.
I was noticing that him and the security guard for the
Closer and Major Crimes.
yeah, and closer, yeah, yeah. I was like, he's yeah.
Him taking a dive into that horse in Police Academy is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
We
And-
got a good living off of him going into a horse's ass.
Oh my God.
Hard
Just
work,
so
hard
great.
life, it made it worse. So. He went to Florida for 3 weeks. I got a new house out of it. So
Hey.
There you go. And we got 9 films out of it too?
8.
8 films, wow. That's amazing.
He went to Russia. The last one.
Mission to Moscow. Yeah. Well, anybody else? Any more flicks?
I need to recommend one other one.
Mhm.
If you like Rankin Bass and you like Mad Monster Party, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer,
Yeah.
Huh?
they put out a really creepy one called The Nutcracker Fantasy.
Oh.
Nutcracker Fantasy,
It's
okay.
from 1979, I think,
Huh.
1980. It's a very creepy telling of the Nutcracker. You have to see it.
Okay.
Hey, Christmas coming up.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
and it's definitely gonna be on our Christmas list because I'm the only one that provides Christmas. Or you?
I have like weird Christmas movies. Like
Yeah.
speaking of Rankin Bass, I love the Jack Frost one where it's like Jack Frost versus like the Russian steampunk army.
Yeah.
Have you not seen that? It's insane.
Jack
It's
Frost?
insane. Oh my god, I love it. It's just like because it's done in that same style of like Rudolph and like the Year Without a Santa Claus, but it's just Jack Frost and he's just like fighting. Like there's this guy who's like, oh, we'll fight you with my steampunk, and it's like these like clock soldiers, and it's so I can't even describe it.
Yeah,
Like and the groundhog is the it's like brain story of the groundhog.
So we could go on a tangent of like the narrative, but yeah, no, the movie starts with the narrative being the groundhog from like Groundhog Day, that groundhog, and he's like, oh yeah, I give Jack Frost a couple weeks because we have a deal, and he just starts talking,
She's
about
a corrupt groundhog?
kind of he takes bribes, I guess. Yeah.
He doesn't take bribe, but he has like a scheme where it's like 6 more weeks of winter, I can get some sleep, and his like shadow that he sees is actually Jack Frost. There's a whole weird mythology. That was the original cinematic universe, was the like Rankin Bass Christmas weird universe. Like
I gotta see this.
Yeah.
Like, the whole,
Yeah.
like the claymation stuff, like from back in the
Like
day?
the puppets and stuff? Yeah.
Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, all those, yeah.
Versus like Soviet Russia, what?
No, it's like the Cossacks and stuff, like the old timey like imperialist
Oh.
Russia and but he builds an army of like mechanical men, but it's like old school, like they're like steampunk like powered, they're like clock powered and stuff. It's weird, it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
We should do like a double feature then. We should do that one and that one.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
they're
I'm
short
down.
enough.
It's
They're
like,
short
I don't-
enough, we could definitely do a feature, yeah.
Yeah, we do
But
it.
Mad Monster Party is amazing. I love Mad Monster Party, yeah.
So where do folks find your podcast, Sylvia?
Yeah, so you guys can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, anything like that. We're also on YouTube if you want to watch the video versions of any of our podcasts. If you guys have liked what you've heard, go out and listen, please. We've got a Discord if you want to talk with us more about movies. We've got a Patreon, we've Instagram, all this stuff. Undercast Company is the name that we do. So yeah, right there in case you guys forget, it's above you, or above us, I guess. But yeah, go ahead and give us a listen. Thank you once again, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Logan, for having us. I've been Derick, Ariel, and Alan.
Thank you. Thanks all for being amazing.
Thank you so much, everybody, and I hope you guys had a good time this evening.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.